Anchors up, sells it full. Welcome to the SloopCast. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Doing right, Jared. Doing right. How are you doing, my friend?
Aw. Call me your friend. New tradition, good tradition. That's how I'm doing. That's how I'm doing.
I think we're all doing fine because we all smell it, Jared. We all smell it.
It was like 90 today. I don't smell anything.
Football is in the air. Football's in the air. We got fall camp. We got position battles to talk about. Man, this is exciting times.
I think not only do we have position battles to talk, but I think we got some good position battles to talk about. And I'll explain what I mean by because sometimes there are good position battles and sometimes there are bad position battles. And I think I'll just explain what that means now. There are good position battles. These are position battles where you have multiple starters and you have more starters than you have starting spots. Then there are bad position battles where you're just desperately looking for someone. There are good position battles, and then there's 2019 Justin Fields versus Chris Chugunov. Did they ever pretend that was a battle? I don't remember. My memory doesn't go back that far anymore. I don't remember anything before 2020. Did they actually pretend? Okay. I'll say this, and I know that there's consternation about this, and I guess we can just sort of start the show as far as getting into the depth chart prediction of it all.
Yeah.
I believe there is a quarterback battle of sorts. And I know that's a controversial take. And while I do feel very confident that Sayan ends up winning said quarterback battle, I think that a lot of the hype around Lincoln Kienholz is legitimate. And if Ohio State absolutely had to, they could play with Lincoln and win football games.
I like what Austin said in the chat here, Jared. I think there's a Julian, you're winning, so don't lose it, but you can lose it battle. I think that kind of fits the bill right there. This is Julian Sayan's position here, but he can easily lose it though.
I'll say this. How about this? This would be more of a quarterback battle if this was still Urban Meyer's football team. I think.
Sure.
I think a lot of the hype you hear from Lincoln, or about Lincoln rather, is that he's really good at the read option. He's big. He's powerful. All of these things. Yeah, exactly. Spikes. He'd be in love with Link. I think so too. That being said, this is Ryan Day's football team. And I think Julian Sayan is more the Ryan Day quarterback. Austin said that Lincoln was always a stash and develop guy, which, he played small high school ball. There was always potential there. He was never going to be a guy who won the job as he's from South Dakota. Yeah, exactly. They don't have big high schools in South Dakota. Maybe they do. I don't know. But regardless, I don't know anything about South Dakota. Point is that the level of competition there was not high. He was never going to be a guy who competed in his first or second year to start. He was always going to be a developmental guy, even if he was really talented, and he is. So it's not that like Lincoln showed up out of nowhere and all of a sudden it's a good quarterback. No, this was always his timeline. And again, if this was Urban Meyer's football team, I think this is a very legitimate, tight battle. But this is not Urban Meyer's football team, which is why I think the hype around Link is legitimate. But one of these guys is a Ryan Day style quarterback and the other one is not. Who is better at leading the team? I think that's a great question. And from what I've been hearing, Sayan's getting more comfortable in that role. And I think early in camp that was not necessarily the case. And that was certainly a missing piece. And one of the reasons why this battle was legitimate. And I think that's something Sayan is going to have to continue to get better at in order to be like the formal winner of the battle. And then you have St. Clair, who has a brilliant future at Ohio State, but week 1 is Texas. So you got to get the player. You got to get this year's guys ready.
You do. Absolutely.
That's where we are with St. Clair. If this were a opening season where your big bad off season or your big bad out of conference team was Cal and you played them in week 3, maybe St. Clair's getting more reps during spring camp, but that's sure. Not this season.
Sure.
So hopefully we don't see St. Clair for a year or two. Because if we get to St. Clair this season, it's bad. There are bad circumstances that lead to that happening. Mm-hmm. But I do want to reiterate that I think he has a brilliant future at Ohio State. Where do you want to go? What do you want to talk about next, Kyle?
Let's do the running backs. Ohio State lost a pair of 1,000-yard rushers.
Yeah.
Income's still talent, but inexperienced running backs here.
Well, I think you overall have.
But I mean, you have the incoming transfer of C.J. Donaldson. So
from West Virginia,
you got some experience there. We've seen spurts of James Peoples from time to time last year, like what we've seen so far, and of course we've got Bo Jackson and I'll just make the obvious joke with a name like that, you can't go wrong.
Right. And I don't have Sam William Dixon on the graphic, but he'll be utilized this year because he has a unique skill set. That, I don't necessarily know that he gets a lot of. He just goes by Samuel Dixon now. Oh. Okay. You have Samuel Dixon now. I totally missed that. But he'll get in probably more specialty type situations. But I do think that, and Jackson apparently had a fantastic scrimmage. I guess he was maybe sick during the first part of camp, but he's better now. And he's starting to make some waves, and people are like, oh, could this be a 3 running back rotation? And I'll say this, Ohio State doesn't do a 3 running back rotation if everyone's healthy. Just historically,
correct.
It doesn't happen.
Yep.
It does not happen. When everyone's healthy, it doesn't happen.
But I do agree with what you have there, Jared. James Peoples, you're starting running back. C.J. Donaldson and then Bo Jackson. Yeah,
and I do think the two-headed beast will be Peoples and Donaldson. And we'll see Bo Jackson like we saw Peoples last year in some late blowout situations and whatever else. Sonic and Knuckles. I like that.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Where do we go next?
You want to do the easy ones? Do the wide receivers, at least for the starters, at least.
I would say I have, for the most part, I'm doing 2 deep. I know the first 2 we pulled where I have 3 deep, but the wide receivers are only 2 deep. Most of the positions are only 2 deep. I feel very confident. I have 6. I just opened up the 3. I hear that JJ guy might start, right? 6 wide receivers up on the board right now. I feel totally 100% confident in my placement of 5 of them, including who's starting and who's not, and all of that, including, Ennis with Graham behind Ennis in the slot, Smith and Tate as your starters on the outside. I feel totally confident that Quincy Porter is probably your guy behind Jeremiah Smith. And I currently have Bryson Rodgers as the guy behind Tate. I feel good about that, but if someone wants to try and talk me out of Rodgers being the guy behind Tate, I'd listen. But the other 5 I feel are rock solid.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with that. I think maybe the other exception might be Bodobkin Miller, maybe. But I do this year. I think those 6 are, I feel very confident. Excuse me. I feel very, very confident about those 6, Jared.
Yeah, Austin says Bodpin is a 2026 2 deep guy, and I agree with that assessment. I agree. I think these are the 6 guys, and the 6 guys in these 6 positions. And I think I'm going to stick to that. Again, those are your starters with Smith and Tate on the outside. Ennis is the slot. Porter behind Smith, Mylan Graham behind Ennis, and Bryson Rodgers behind Tate. I feel good there.
Yeah. All right, let's finish up. Let's finish up with the tight ends here.
Tight ends. Kyle, Ohio State might have the best tight end room in the country. It's actually
Is
crazy.
this the year? Is this the year, Jared?
Okay,
We'll ask it every year. We'll ask it every year.
Is this the year of the tight end? I want to point out that we had a year of the tight end only 2 seasons ago.
We did.
Cade Stover deserves his flowers on that. We had the year of the tight end 2 seasons ago. Pay Cade Stover his due respects. That being said, I don't think Ohio State has ever had Max Clare at tight end before. And I don't mean that literally. They've never had Max Clare. I don't think they've ever had someone like Max Clare at tight end before. Not even just Clare. The room is so deep. 100%. Kickmerrick has proven himself as a totally reliable blocker and a guy who can make some catches when needed. Same with Bennett Christian. A guy, he made a huge reception in the playoffs. Primarily a blocker, but can absolutely, make catches when needed. Clare is just all of it. Maybe not as good as a blocker as the other 2 guys, but still, is that guy. And Thurman has been getting a ton of buzz this camp. And that's 4 deep on the tight ends right now. I don't even have Thurman up on the board right now. I didn't let myself go 4 deep anywhere. The best tight end room in the country, best tight end room Ohio State has ever had. And I feel very confident in saying both of those things. Like, I'm not going to hedge that. I'm not going to qualify that. That's it. That's the entire sentence. I guess both two entire sentences. Shut up, Jared. What are your thoughts, Kyle?
I think Claire is your starter. Kakameric, your backup, and Christian, the third tight end there. So I agree with that. I totally agree.
And yet I still fully expect Thurman to get snaps this year. Crazy.
Depends on how much running Coach Day wants to do this year.
Well, and it's just like, because everyone, you have all of these tight ends, and you're like, oh my goodness, you have all these tight ends. So what, are we going to start running this formation and that formation? And are we going to see more 2 tight end sets and da-da-da? And like, I have to explain to people, if you put an extra tight end on the field, you're taking Brandon Ennis off the field, right? Like, 2 tight ends means 1 less wide receiver. Like, and by the way, and no disrespect to James Peoples or CJ Donaldson, who I think are going to have great years, but look at these wide receivers and look at these tight ends. Look at these wide receivers and look at these tight ends. This is why Sayan's winning the job.
Yeah.
All right, this is not JT Barrett's offense.
All right, let's do the slobs. Let's.
This is controversial. I tell you what. I'm gonna do center. I don't think anyone's gonna disagree with this. I think this one's. There's. I said at the beginning of the show, there's good position battles and there's bad position battles, and in years past, when we talked about the offensive line, it was bad. It was bad position battles. It was like, we got like 3 guys in 5 positions, and I guess we kind of gotta, now we'll do an ad before or after we could, you want to do it now?
We're into it. Let's just
all right, let's go.
Let's keep going.
This is a good position battle. I think Ohio State legitimately has 9 starters on the team right now for the offensive line. I'll say that again. I think Ohio State has 9 starters on the offensive line. And in years past, we've been doing this show for 10 years now, Kyle. In years past, it was like 3 or 4 starters for 5 positions that we felt good about.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State has like 9 starters right now. And even if I didn't say 9 starters, if I raised the bar a bit, I would still say, I'd say you have 3 starting tackles, 2 starting centers, and 3 starting guards. And that's me raising the bar a bit. I think center is the most obvious here. You have Hinsman with Padilla behind him. I think this is the least controversial spot you can get on the offensive line right now. I'll stick with the interior because I feel like it's a little more set. I'll go left guard. Got Luke Montgomery at left guard. I think that's pretty solid right now. I got Gabe Van Sickle, who is making moves this camp, behind him. I don't think he's going to unseat Montgomery, but Van Sickle's been turning some heads. I think starter in waiting in Van Sickle. Right guard. Tegra is maybe one of the most veteran guys on the team right now. I think it's his spot. Could he get unseated in the next couple weeks? I'm not going to say no, but I would be surprised if it happens. Now that being said, I have Philip Daniels behind him at right guard. And we're going to have that conversation. That's just a conversation we're going to have when we get to the tackles. Tegra did so well in the playoffs. He did, and he is definitely a guy who we've all criticized in the past too. So he's a guy who has grown a lot. Because he was definitely someone who we rightfully criticized for a long time. Left tackle. It was said on Monday during the Ryan Day press conference that Austin Sareveld is playing almost, I forget the exact phrase, but I think he said almost exclusively at left tackle, which turned some heads. This is not how if we had done this last week, I would not have had Sareveld at left tackle.
Yeah, I think most of us would.
I would have had Sareveld at right tackle.
Yep.
Behind him, you have Ian Moore, who is a starter in waiting. I think he's just young right now. I think is the biggest knock on Ian Moore. He'll be in the conversation to start next year for sure. I do think he's currently the fourth tackle on this team, though. And that's not a knock, because I think that there are 3 Big Ten quality starting tackles on this team. At right tackle, I currently have Ethan at right tackle starting, and I have Phillip Daniels behind him. I kind of just have Phillip Daniels as the 6th guy, period.
The next man up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously center is a little bit different. Center can be a little bit different. So it's probably still Padilla coming in at center if anything should happen there. But I think otherwise, if there's an injury and they might have to shuffle some stuff around, because maybe you want Phillip Daniels, it's sort of like, well, who's a better tackle versus who's a better guard? If, say, Tegra goes down, maybe you bump Ethan inside and let Daniels take over at right tackle. Maybe you just bump Daniels right into right guard if something happens to Tegra. I think that's a lot of what they're still trying to figure out right now, is like who plays well out of position. I think that's one of the reasons why, if you look at a lot of the news coming out of camp right now, that there's a ton of like, well, this guy's playing here and this guy's playing there and that guy's playing over here. I think that they're just trying to figure that stuff out, which they did that last year too. And it kind of worked out when you had to bump your left guard out to tackle.
Yeah.
So having that information, and maybe it feels wasteful. Maybe if you're kind of old school like me, you're like, no, build solidarity, get everyone in their spots and leave them there and build chemistry and yada, yada, yada. Seeing who played well where served them pretty damn well last year when it was needed. So
sure it did.
And as I said, I'd have Ethan and Austin swapped if we did the show last week.
Kind of how I was thinking as well, having Ethan left and Austin right. I think another name, I don't think he's gonna sniff up here and like steal a starting role here, but Carter Lowe, I think, could be like maybe that third left tackle, maybe.
I shit you not, Kyle. Carter Lowe would be in the conversation for starting last year or 2 years ago. That's it. Like, I think he would be in the conversation for a starting spot if the offensive line room was as shallow as it was the past few years.
Yep.
The only reason why Carter Lowe is not currently in the 2 deep is because the room is so deep. It's not a comment on him. And along those same lines, Austin asks the question, any comment on some people saying Ethan has been lackluster? It's not that.
I haven't heard that.
Well, because I think there's a lot of people who are like, well, he's going to be the left tackle. And then it's like, well, he's not going to be the left tackle. He's going to be the right tackle. And then some people are like, well, Philip Daniels might be the right tackle. So maybe Ethan isn't. So people maybe, we might be reading, we might be reading too much into like the news coming out of camp. And we might be reading it as a negative of like Ethan getting dropped down the board.
Sure.
But it's not, it's not that. It is just legitimately, you have 3 starting tackles on this team. And they're just trying to figure out how to slot 3 guys into 2 slots.
If you want a 10th name here, just because Jared has Philip Daniels on here, I think maybe you could put in like Jake Cook at right guard.
Could.
As a name as well.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
I mean,
all right. We'll go ahead and take
for the sake of doing it, I'll do it. But no, I think this is a good, I get what you're saying, Austin, because especially in regards to the offensive line, we've had a lot of those bad position battles recently. This is a good position battle. You have too many damn starters. That's what's happening right now.
All right. We're going to go ahead and take our first ad break here since we are a little overdue here. TheSloopCast.com, your go-to link for anything and everything SloopCast related. There you can find our YouTube page, our Patreon page, Discord, merch store, and much, much more. And over at TheSloopCast.com. We'll take that first ad break and be back to talk about the defense.
All right. Talking about the defense now, Kyle.
Defense, I will say
I'm giving away the game. Hold on.
You are. Jeez, good job, Jared.
Oh my God.
Defense here is, I'd say, in like 90% of the positions are just stacked and loaded.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, you say 90%, like it's the tackles. It's the defensive tackles that we're worried about right now.
Yeah, exactly. Also, even though last year's defense, number 1 in the nation, like, how can you live up to that? How can you do that? How can you get that much better? And yeah, I agree with Austin here. It says defense could be more talented than last year's team. Yeah, that's the scary part. Like, they have the talent. You look at all the names that we're about to, all the names that we're about to mention here, just a lot of experience. And a lot of known names already, or even players who weren't starting last year but played a lot as well too, and that's really helped out for what this defense can do this year.
Absolutely. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with the safeties here. Obviously, Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs is your one of your safeties there, and Malik Hartford is your other one. I feel pretty confident in both of those.
Yeah, and I have Hartford and McLean at realistically, hold on. Realistically, and no offense, but it's more accurate. There's been talk of Caleb playing the nickel. Well,
there's been talk of Caleb playing everywhere.
About that, I may have also made, but we'll come back to that later. Hold on. Everyone want a quick peek? There's another quick peek. Okay, but we'll come back to that later. We'll talk about that later, Austin. But yeah, once again, you have 3 starting safeties and 2 safety positions. You will see, I think Malik Hartford is probably going to be like the starter, but you'll see plenty of Jalen McClain, especially if, as Austin was saying, they just sort of give Caleb Downs, you call it a nickel if you want to call it a nickel, call it a whatever you want to call it, but just sort of like the ability to roam the field and do whatever the hell he wants because he's got that kind of football IQ. He's just a smart guy who understands the field, and he's got the speed and the agility to get anywhere. Call the position whatever you want to call the position. It's entirely possible, and I did also make that depth chart, that you see Hartford and McClain as your 2 starting safeties, and then Downs is just also on the field doing something. Which he did that a few times last year too. Yeah. Absolutely. Corners?
Corners.
Yeah.
Yep, corners. Iggy Matthews, right?
Absolutely. Maybe more interesting is who's going to back them up, because it is Iggy and Matthews.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say right now I have Adam Scott backing up Iggy. I have Sanchez backing up Matthews. And I'll also say I put 0 thought into who went behind who. I don't know that it actually matters that much. I quite frankly don't know how, under the new defensive coordinator, are they boundary? Are they, I'm not 100% sure. I'd love to see Sanchez take a step and force one of those into the slot in 3 cornerback sets. My understanding as of right now, the slot corner is still your Elder Styles brother, Lorenzo Styles Jr. And you probably have Aaron Scott backing him up at that spot. Or excuse me, not Aaron Scott. Blanking. Other second-year cornerback from Ohio. Someone help me. Words hard. Bryce West.
Bryce West?
Yes. So if you're talking specifically a slot corner, I would say it's probably those 2 in that order, at least for now. Austin, I know he's had his struggles. Lorenzo Styles Jr., but he's swapping positions. We saw him, swapping positions, and there's value in having veterans in the lineup. And for what it's worth, he's not a starter. You want me to compare him? That's not true. And even if that was true, they don't have to start him to make anyone happy. Quite frankly. Like, even if what you said is true, that doesn't mean he has to start. But I don't think that's true.
All right, so Iggy, Matthews, and then, yeah, I think Scott and Sanchez backup is our prediction. I think it's fine. I think it's fine there.
Again, I don't have the slot corner on the field, but I think it's Styles and Bryce West.
Yeah. All right, linebackers. I think your two main linebackers is going to be Sonny and Reese.
Yeah, Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, and Peyton Pierce. If they go 3 linebackers, and I don't know, I don't know if there even is a base formation for Ohio State's defense right now, quite frankly. Maybe that base defense is actually this defense with the nickel. I don't know. But right now, I just wanted to look at things as a 4-3. We'll treat that as the base. Perhaps you take Peyton Pierce off the field and I think we talked about this last year where there's like 10 starters and then you have like that flex position. Sometimes you bring in a third safety. Sometimes you bring in a third corner. Sometimes you bring in a third linebacker. And that's a good thing. And I think it's good to have multiple sets and multiple position groups. I think it's situational, which is good. Yeah, absolutely, Austin. So yeah, it's like you have your 2 corners, your 2 safeties, your 2 linebackers, your 4 defensive linemen, and then you have this 11th spot, which might just be Caleb Downs doing whatever the hell he wants. It might be Peyton Pierce. It might be a nickel corner, whether that be Lorenzo Styles or Bryce West in that role. So you kind of just have this 11th spot and that's fine. That's good even. But yeah, I would say Styles, Reese, and Pierce are 3 starters. I do think it's primarily Reese and Styles. When they're in 2 linebackers, it's going to be Reese and Styles, but Peyton Pierce is in that conversation for sure. It could be CJ Hicks as the jack. We'll finally see the jack. We're not going to finally see the jack. But by the way, it might be a 5th rusher. Of course, in my mind, that 5th rusher is probably not coming. It's probably at the expense of a linebacker and not like the 11th position. It's probably in those situations going to be a defensive back taking over that 11th position and one of the linebackers just either Sonny Styles just going up on the edge by just being Sonny Styles up on the edge, or maybe potentially, as you said, replaced by maybe it wouldn't be Styles being replaced. Quite frankly, it'd probably be Reese with CJ Hicks. Oh, an additional edge rusher with his hand in the proverbial dirt. We call it a penny front, Jared. Thank you.
Great. The defensive slobs here. I think the obvious ones are your tackles here with Caden McDonald and Edric Houston as your starters. But because of the injury with Houston, a lot more of the backup guys are getting more experience in there as well during camp. But yeah, depth in the tackles is a little right now. And that's why I said at the beginning of talking about the defense here that 90% of this defense is like really good and solid, like deep. Well, yeah. This is where that 10% is here. It's the tackles.
I'd question your math because it's 2 out of 11.
We'll just move on.
Okay. Listen, you're always ripping on me for not being able to do math on the podcast. I thought I'd return the favor. Are you pulling up a calculator right now? Is that what you're doing?
Finding it 18%, Jared.
I knew you were pulling up a calculator. He wasn't doing math. He was asking his calculator to do math. Yeah, I think Caden McDonald's your starting nose tackle. Edric Houston is your starting 3 tech. Right now, it's starting to look like Will Smith Jr. is the second 3 tech. And at nose tackle, you have a battle between Malone and Moore as to who's going to be that backup nose tackle. I talked a lot about how there are good position battles and bad position battles. I think you have two starting defensive tackles, and then you have some bad position battles going on behind them to figure out who's going to be in the two deep. Quite frankly, I think is what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
But Kyle, you want to talk about stacked? You want to talk about being absolutely stacked? Edge rushers go crazy right now.
Edge rushers go crazy.
I didn't even put Logan George on here. Like it's actually, yeah, it's, I'm shocked. I'm shocked that I don't have Caden Curry as a starter at the moment. I think Caden Curry's fantastic. I think he's absolutely fantastic. And I don't have him as a starter right now because they picked up Bo Atkinson out of the transfer portal. And by the way, across the other side of the field, I have Kenyatta Jackson with CJ Hicks backing him up. Those are both all four of those guys are starters. All four of those guys are starters.
They're going to, if people don't know these defensive ends names right now, they're going too soon. They're going too soon. Just like everybody knew JT and Captain Jack. People are going to know Atkinson. They're going to know Curry. They're going to know Kenyatta Jackson. I think there's a good handful of people that know about CJ Hicks already, but more people are going to know about CJ Hicks as well.
Yeah. And Austin makes a good point. He says there's a good chance Caden Curry plays the early downs and Bo plays on passing downs. Same with Kenyatta and CJ. Well, here's the thing about that, Austin. It might not just be that. It might not just be that, Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson leave the field on obvious passing downs. It might be that they become the defensive tackles on obvious passing downs. Yes, and that is what you call a Rushman package. Don't get me all hot and bothered. Listen, aside from, I think Edric Houston is a pass rusher. He's a guy who can play as a defensive tackle pass rusher. I think Caden McDonald can as well. But I don't think you have you have a nose tackle who's going to get at the quarterback on this team. Edric Houston, we'll see. And I think he can and he could, but if you're trying to get your defensive tackles off the field because you don't have a lot of good depth at defensive tackle and you're trying to get those guys some breathing room, it might just be a good rotational tactic to get them off the field in obvious passing downs so that they're ready for the running downs. That's a way you can rotate your defensive tackles without rotating your defensive tackles. Hicks, Curry, Houston, Kenyatta, and Bo, a penny front. I think that works. Yeah. Sonny in the middle. Iggy, Sanchez, Downs, Hartford, Matthews.
I forgot how big McDonald was or is.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
As a big boy to try to make a gap from.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, 6'3", 326 per the Ohio State athletics page.
Yeah, dude's huge.
He eating gaps.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I do think Edric Houston he could be a good pass rusher. I mean, it's obviously yet to be seen. But when it lost my train of thought. Edric Houston was recruited as a defensive end. It was always known that he was going to be kind of a tweener. That was known coming in. He would make a perfect defensive end in a defensive 3-4. You know, should he go on to the next level, you know, he would be perfect in like the you know, Steelers 3. Like he could be very Cam Hayward-esque. I think is, you know, what you're shooting for if you're Edric Houston. Yeah. Any additional thoughts, concerns, questions on the defense?
No, I do agree with this. I think I feel a lot more confident, just because the whole offensive line is. You can throw players around just because of how many starters there really are on the offensive line. But I feel the defense is a lot more solidified. But man, I feel just so good about the defense this year. Not saying the offense isn't gonna do well or anything like that, but the defense, man, I'm excited.
I have a few more points, but Kyle, you want to take us to another ad break first? After you take a quick cough or sneeze or whatever.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to get over whatever this is here.
Don't apologize for involuntary human actions, Kyle.
SloopCast.com is your go-to link. Everything and anything SloopCast related. Mentioned some of our links in our first ad break here. I'll mention about the 7071 store. It's a great place for some of the t-shirt designs Jared has made. If you didn't want anything that's podcast related, Jared's made some kind of cool ones over there, whether it's city based or Ohio beers, or just some plain ones. I have a gray one that just says Ohio, like a block block formation there. It just says Ohio. Pretty cool design there. A lot of really neat designs if you're kind of into the more Ohio themed type of shirts. Check out 7071 or 7071 link over at thesloopcast.com. We'll take that second ad break so I can take a drink of water real quick, and we'll be right back.
How you doing, Kyle? Kyle's struggling.
I am struggling, man.
Kyle, who's the Blocko? And don't say Sonny Styles.
I wasn't even thinking.
I know.
Of that.
I dropped that on you. Because here's the thing. I feel like that's been a topic of conversations a lot during our preseasons, but we haven't really done it a lot this year because we all just assume it's going to be Sonny Styles. And I think it will be Sonny Styles. But if it isn't, if it's not Sonny Styles, Kyle, who is it? And I'm asking the chat too. I want the chat's opinion on this.
I'm trying to think who.
No, it is not.
I mean, he's pretty much the lockdown. I'm looking through the list. Who else would be?
I'm trying to figure out, Kyle, if it would help you or hurt you if I gave you an answer, because I'd be taking that answer off the board.
Let me look at the upperclassmen here. Let me look at the upperclassmen.
Okay. What's the question? Who's the Blocko? And you're not allowed to say Sonny Styles. That's the question. Because I think we all think it's going to be Sonny Styles. I have kind of an odd answer.
I think some of the veteran ones, you could put Curry. Hicks,
Uh-huh.
Styles,
Senior Styles?
the other Styles.
Well,
Yeah.
who's actually
Or
a junior. Elder
How
Styles.
about a corner Jared? Iggy.
Okay. Could you ever give a transfer the Blocko? That I'm not disagreeing.
Who says you can't?
I'm not
Who says you can't?
I'm not. I'm asking the question. I'm simply asking questions, Kyle. If transfer is getting it, would be Caleb. Caleb's not a senior, although it's been a senior every single time. And yes, we all acknowledge that this is his last season at Ohio State. Like, I don't think there's any chance in hell he's coming back for a third year, fourth year in total. But they've always given it to a senior.
Yeah.
They've always given it to a final year player, I should say. Literally a safety, and people have said he's the number one prospect in the draft and will go top 5. I know. Zero chance in hell he's coming back, but they've never given it to someone who has the eligibility to return. Now, could they give it to JJ next year? Maybe. It's possible. I won't deny it. All right. Kyle, how do you feel about Carson Hinsman? I think that's where I go if I have to go. I think he's a guy who has started a lot for Ohio State. I think he was a guy who was in the doghouse at Ohio State for a bit due to some things he said publicly after his freshman year. He's a guy who worked his way out of the doghouse. He's a guy who has played guard, played center. He's moved around. It won't even be sunny. Uh-oh. Austin thinks he's onto something. Sonny loves 6 too much. I mean, you have to take the Blocko if it's given to you, though, right? Now, of course, if Hinsman gets it, it would be a patch because you're not allowed to wear 0 on the offensive line. But we've seen that happen before.
Yep, happened once before.
Adolph. It could be David Adolph. They've given it to the. The same way X got it. But the thing is that X was going to be a member of, I don't know how much Adolph gets on the field, and X was always going to get on the field, even as a former walk-on.
Yeah.
Adolph is the 7th receiver. Yeah. And Xavier was the 3rd or 4th wide receiver? Transfer.
Since this is the year of the tight end, let's give it to either Christian or Kakamir, both 4th and 5th year seniors.
Kikmerik's a transfer. I'll believe it when I see it. and maybe Iggy, because this is now his 3rd year at Ohio State. Like even though he's a transfer, it doesn't quite feel as he's his 3rd year at Ohio State. Hinsman didn't play for Wisconsin. I don't care where they're from. They chose to come here. You don't get to choose where you're born. You do get to choose where you go to college, especially when you have options like these guys have options.
I think it is this week. I think it's going to be announced this week, Jared, of who's going to get Blocko, if I remember correctly.
Has to be announced
this week. Yeah.
Yeah. The Blocko is almost always an Ohio kid. I don't think that's true. I don't have those. I don't have it in front of me to look, but I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I don't.
Do you guys know where Cody Simon's from?
Where's Cody Simons from?
He's a New Jersey kid.
Well, there's one. You want to roll down the list, Kyle? I think Suncard was just going to be like, they aren't going to call me out on this. I think he was just going to try and roll into that answer with confidence and just assume we weren't going to call him out on it. It almost worked. No, it didn't. I do respect it, though. I do respect it.
So Jonathan Cooper.
Suncard, you've had a couple takes that you truly believe that ended up being terrible, to be fair. You are very face blind as an example.
Jonathan Cooper. Where was Jonathan Cooper?
No one's arguing you don't go hard in the paint, Suncard. That's why we love you. But going hard in the paint isn't the same as, actually putting it in the bucket. Jonathan Cooper was from Ohio. He
was from Gahanna.
Olentangy Orange. Actually, for some reason, I actually know the high school. Olentangy Orange.
Mm-hmm. And then it was Thayer Munford. He was the one that couldn't wear 0.
Yeah. Where was he? I don't remember where Thayer's from.
He's from Cincinnati.
Okay, see, Austin is at least kind of onto something here.
Okay. And Cameron Bob?
Bob's from Cleveland, right?
He's from Columbus.
Since he is almost Ohio is maybe the funniest thing you've ever said in this Discord server, Suncard. Since he is almost Ohio is a banger sentence.
Mm-hmm. And where was X from?
I think Ohio. I'm almost certain Ohio. I don't know where. He was a walk-on. Yeah, that's true. That does add credibility that he's... Yeah, good point, Austin. He is from...
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I was just trying to just double check. It does say he is from Cincinnati.
Okay.
I was just double checking.
I mean, I was giving Suncard crap, but there was at least some merit to this.
Mm-hmm.
There was at least some merit to it, although it did get busted last year.
Yeah. It's interesting because there was from Ohio State's page here. I'm trying to figure out who the second one is. It was an article from a year ago. Cody Simon, a Jersey City, New Jersey native, who is the second non-Ohioan to wear a block O. And I'm like,
Cameron,
but we just went through all of them.
Suncard says, wasn't Bob from Cincinnati? Or excuse me, St. Louis. I have Cincinnati on the brain now.
Let me look. Oh yeah, no, you're right. Yep, it is St. Louis. Okay, that's the other one. Yeah. All right,
there you go. So I mean, there's at least some merit to it.
All right.
That being
said,
selection.
Corner.
We'll just call that Kyle's corner. There's a bit of selection bias there because, somewhere between a third and a half of the players on the team are from Ohio. So there's a little bit of a, All right. We're calling.
I do have one more. More because this is interesting.
Is this Kyle's corner?
Preseason rankings are crap, and sure. we shouldn't.
Unless it's
we
ours.
shouldn't care.
Unless it's ours. Go watch that episode.
So in the AP, Ohio State is third, second in the coaches, and Texas is number one. So a 1 versus 3 matchup here. Currently, Ohio State is a 2.5 point favorite over the Longhorns, which would be a first ever for a preseason ranked number 1 team to be an underdog in week 1.
That's a fun factoid. I will point out that 2.5 at home does mean that Texas would be favored on a neutral.
Yes. Yep.
For the record, that would translate into, I think, depending upon the book, either one or either 1.5 or half point for Texas. If it were played on a neutral field.
Yep. All right. I promise that was it.
Okay, that's it. All right, that's it. Kyle, it was announced this week that Ohio State will be doing new, I think it was actually last week, new like in-stadium stuff. New traditions, new routines, new yada yada yada.
Tradition evolved.
Tradition evolved, which is such a marketing bullshit thing. We're evolving tradition. Oh, so you're changing it? No, we're evolving it. We aren't changing it. We're evolving it. One of the things they said that they were going to do was incorporate some like a new playlist playing songs in the shoe. I actually really wanted to do and thought about doing an episode where I was like, okay, here's the new third down song and here's the kickoff song. Because as much as I like the White Stripes, we do need to acknowledge that they're from Michigan. And maybe we should let Seven Nation Army go. And I thought about mapping out the whole thing. I think as an example, I think the third down song should be Trees by 21 Pilots. I think that would go hard. I thought about doing a whole episode where I mapped it out, but I thought it was going to be lame if I did it and I didn't actually do music drops. But if I can't really do music drops on the show because of YouTube. So I just decided not to do it. But and we don't know like the full soundtrack yet of like what all the changes are going to be. They did say that they were going to incorporate a song called Ohio from the band Caamp, which is spelled with 2 A's for anyone trying to Google that at home. I decided I'm just going to go ahead and end the show with that today. In case, and of course, like once again, I can't play music on YouTube, so that's only going to be for the podcast listeners. Only going to be for the audio listeners. But if you are watching on YouTube, I will put a link, like I always do. I always end the show with music. YouTube people never hear the music, but you can always go down into the show notes and click the link to the music as an alternative. So I thought, hey, let's just play that song, and in case you were like, hey, what's this new song that they're going to play at the shoe now as a part of a new tradition? Well, you're about to hear it on the podcast side, YouTube side, link in the description. So Kyle, with all that being said, I'd like to encourage everyone to drink local beer, listen to local music, and of course, support your local podcasters. The name of this band is Caamp. Once again, name of this band is Caamp.